In this series, I will be assembling an art portfolio. In this first episode, we'll be looking at hands. So what I did is I decided to take photographs of my own hand. I did it behind a perfectly white background, which I think makes it a lot easier when you're doing a study. And what I was really trying to do is come up with the most interesting poses possible, because I've seen in a lot of hand poses, there's some that are just not as exciting as others. You can see in this example, it's kind of flat and boring, and just by skewing things a bit, you can see it really accentuates the form of the hand a bit more. It is more difficult to draw something like that, but I feel that it is better for representing a hand. Alright, so we're going into time lapse now, and I absolutely spared no expense when it came to preparing for this piece in the portfolio. So what you're seeing here is basically just a dry run. I went through all the hand poses and drew them on a bigger scale on a bigger piece of paper, because in the portfolio they said you should draw it on a standard piece of or at least a standard size, like the printer paper size. And I was able to find 3 examples of people who posted their portfolio. The college I'm trying to get into is Algonquin College in the animation program. And there's been 3 people who have posted their portfolios that got accepted. And I've really been obsessing over those 3 portfolios, trying to understand what went right and what went wrong. I guess not really what went wrong, because they got in, but I'm a bit perplexed. I don't really understand why those were the winning portfolios, because I have 2 of what I feel are slightly contradictory pieces of information. Uh, Algonquin says that 90% of people get rejected in their portfolio, and the work that I saw in the portfolios that got accepted was not too bad, but I kind of have a hard time believing that 90% of people fail to meet that standard. So it's either my standards are way too high, or the college is just inflating that number a bit, or the third reason is perhaps those portfolios actually are really good in a way that I don't understand, and that maybe there's something I'm just not getting. Because like for the hands, I'm not really sure what they want. Like this, it was listed under part of the life drawing section, so I would assume that you're supposed to use reference. Though one of the people who submitted a portfolio clearly didn't use reference. They just did construction. I'd be shocked if it was from reference. It looks like it's done from imagination. And all of them have the construction lines showing, so I have the construction lines showing in mine. I didn't do any erasing in the end, and tried to accentuate the construction lines, make it clear that I understand that this is a 3D object. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, one of them had, like, I think all 3 kind of had not great anatomy, so I'm assuming that's not what they're going for, or maybe the hand portion of the portfolio for those guys was just a weak point. But I don't know. But I feel that I really don't have any particular strengths when it comes to this portfolio, except maybe the perspective drawing aspect, because they want you to include a perspective drawing, and I do enjoy perspective drawings. I don't know if I'm particularly good at them, but I have practiced it a bit, and I do have a couple perspective drawings that I've already done that I think will work fine in the portfolio. But other than that, I don't have any life drawing, which is an issue. I simply live in the middle of nowhere, so I can't go to like a formal life drawing class. Uh, and yeah, I feel like I need to do my absolute best on all of these like test things. There's the hands, and you gotta draw feet and stuff. So I'm not normally this much of a perfectionist when it comes to drawing stuff. I'm a big fan of just if I make a mistake, I just redo the entire thing. I don't generally use an eraser to slowly tweak things. But I did do this in this one, and I just really want to have the best possible final result. And part of that was I decided to go for some slightly more complicated hand poses. And I think that, I'm not sure. I think like since they're harder to draw, they didn't turn out as well. But maybe the effort will be appreciated. Trying something a little more interesting than just like say a flat view. I mean, I do have a fist, just because I felt I should include something, and it's not the best fist. It's actually probably the weakest of the the 5 drawings. But the first one, I really like it. It's a nice relaxed pose, and yeah, the second one is also pretty relaxed, and I think well, obviously the fist is not going to be relaxed, and the other 3 aren't, or the other 2 are not super relaxed. I did kind of vaguely suggest the tendons in this one, even though that wasn't really prominent in the actual reference. I thought it was good to add the tendons in a couple of these just to sort of show that I do know where those are. I really don't know. Like, this is a lot of guesswork here. I could be completely on the wrong track of what they want to see, but I would assume at least a little bit of hand anatomy understanding would help. But I guess it can't hurt. Yeah, coming up on the second one here. This pose was definitely my favorite. It's such a weird pose, but it's super relaxed and quite a tough one to sell. Like, I initially had to redraw this one a couple times. I think it was pretty straight ahead on this version. On the bigger version that I did on the warm up, I did have to readjust things quite a few times because the palm was way too long. And the thing is, the palm is quite long in this one, and the fingers kind of go off at weird angles. And it looks weird at first, but you kind of just have to go through the entire thing until it kind of comes together in the end. And I think, yeah, I think it's a nice pose. And the one that is drawn after it is also kind of nice because it almost has like a flow to it where one flows into the other, almost like one frame after the other. But yeah, one challenge that it was kind of unforeseen when I was doing this, because I am doing this on a standard sized piece of paper. It is still Bristol board, so I can do a ton of erasing and redoing without damaging it. And I just cut a chunk of Bristol board to the standard dimensions. But one thing that was unforeseen is it's kind of tough to draw 5 hands on a piece of paper without them clashing. So I had to think about how I was going to position these. The first one kind of concerned me because it was a little too big, and I think it turned out pretty well, so I didn't want to have to redraw the whole thing, so I had to juggle things around a little bit. And I just, in this pose that I'm drawing here, you can see it gets pretty close to the edge, but it does fit. I'm not sure if that would be a bad thing if they saw one of the hands go off the edge, if that would be considered poor planning. But I don't know. I mean, in one of the portfolios that was an example online, the guy clearly didn't actually draw 5 hands on a piece of paper. He just drew 5 hands and then cut them out and put them on one standard size piece of paper area. So I'm assuming they're not super picky about that, because if they were, that would probably be an issue. So they'll probably forgive things clashing. Now, luckily, for the most part, that didn't happen in this one. But, yeah. Now, one thing that was kind of weird on the pose coming up here, and I think this was probably just due to fatigue for the most part. I've been drawing for probably 5-6 hours today, and it's all just drawing hands and tweaking things and just obsessing over all the little details to make them as good as possible. And that is on this hand that I'm drawing right here on the upper left. I think the version I did on the big piece of paper kind of worked, and this was definitely an odd angle because you only really get the thumb and the indexed finger, and everything else is sort of obscured by the hand. And this, I couldn't recapture it no matter how hard I tried. I erased, redid, and I was getting real frustrated because this, I was just tired, and this hand pose was just totally not coming together. So you can see I completely erased it. And I was like, all right, let's just regroup. Let's do a different approach here and attack it from a different angle. And unfortunately, it was pretty much the same story. I kept erasing, redoing, and just could not make that pose work. And I don't know if it was just too subtle, if there was something I was just truly not getting about this pose. It is a weird angle, but I just couldn't make it happen. You can see I'm just changing things up, and nothing's working, especially with the palm. I just kept readjusting the palm, and I don't know, just couldn't make it happen. But yeah, I was getting super frustrated. You can see here I was trying with those top fingers and just eventually erased everything. Got sick of it. So I decided to take a quick break from that pose. I actually decided to give up on that pose and just do for something quite a bit easier, but a little more fingery. So I drew the fist. Really, probably the weakest pose of them all, but I felt it was necessary to include a fist. And it's also a left-handed fist. All the other pictures are incidentally right-handed, so I guess it's good to have one of each hand, or at least one of each hand. Yeah. And yeah, not much to say about the fist. It was really just pretty standard. And yeah, so this pose that I decided to go for as the new replacement fifth pose, I didn't actually practice this one before on the big paper because I was just getting really sick of it at this point. And I really kind of did a little bit of a lapse on the perfectionism on this one. I pretty much just settled for, maybe not, like it's still pretty much as good as the other ones in terms of execution. I don't think I could have done better, but I guess I just didn't prepare for it as much. But yeah, pretty straightforward pose, an interesting angle, and I think it also flows nicely with the one to the right. You can see that's almost like 1-2 of different frames, and I like that about this composition of the hands. The fist's kind of just thrown in there, but oh well. This is the result. I can honestly say it's the best I can do. And next week we will be, or probably not next week, probably tomorrow, we'll be doing the feet study. It's not going to be nearly as comprehensive as this hand study. So yes, thank you for watching.